Hi. So in January last year, I uploaded a video from my apartment in Kaili, Guizhou province, China, and I was talking about the subject of smoking in China. Um, there's a strong smoking culture there, even allowing for the huge population. It has a very high rate of smoking among adult men, particularly men in China. The discrepancy is quite strong between men and women, but it's very profound there. I mean, you can see it in every aspect of culture. I'll try and put a link to that video in this one so you can connect the two. So, as a sort of twin to that, so to speak, I want to talk about smoking in the UK, how it compares, the culture, and also how COVID-19 may actually have some influence on discussions around things like this. That sound, by the way, you hear is actually I'm getting a message from a Chinese friend now, so I'll have to respond to her afterwards. But basically, I'm not a heavy smoker in the UK, but I do smoke periodically, almost entirely cigarillos. I rarely smoke cigarettes in the UK, and that's the first big difference is the pricing. Like most Western countries, it's quite expensive. A packet of standard cigarettes, say Players or something along those lines, Sterling, would average nowadays about £9 to £10. And this may vary on geography. I imagine in London it would be even more. So it's quite expensive. I mean, that would be the equivalent of around 100 RMB in China, when over there I was getting a packet for 5 RMB. So the discrepancy in that pricing is very significant. Um, I get cigarillos because I prefer the taste is the wrong word. I prefer the feel of them, and they're cheaper. And this is an example. I'm not going to monetize this video, so I don't want to get into any sort of, I don't know, branding issues. But Royal Dutch, I get this in Tesco's. It's £4.46. Went up a little bit from 4.19, which I really don't mind. I have no objection to tobacco going up because it makes it limits how much I buy, which is obviously good for my health. As you can see here, there's a warning. It shows a guy who's obviously had a throat operation, and there's far more graphic things than that. I've seen one, for example, with a guy and it's foot all gangrene. You see these shock adverts. It's long been used in Western countries, in Australia particularly. In China, the difference is you just have a sort of verbal warning: don't smoke too much. They don't go into the shock advertising. The thing with it, I mean, I don't look at this and think, whoa, that's going to happen to me. And it's not that I'm in denial. This is something I really want to stress. There are some smokers who are in denial and they make excuses like the health risks are overblown or whatever. I'm absolutely not in denial. If I smoke too much, I run the risk of getting throat cancer, lung cancer, and probably a host of other cancers. It's not a healthy habit, and any smoker that says it is in denial. So I do understand that. I'm not one of these smokers. Like I said, I wouldn't even call myself particularly a heavy smoker. I smoke a lot less here than I did in China, partly because of the price issue and partly just because I want to have it under control. And I appreciate that the nicotine aspect makes that harder for some smokers. But that's the other thing about cigarillos. The actual nicotine intake is probably less in cigarettes. The addictive quality is not as strong. Um, with cigarillos, you tend to inhale less. And this isn't to say it's healthy, it's not, but there is a difference there, which I've noticed having smoked both. Um, so as it stands, I will smoke this about once or twice a month, and I can go a whole month without anything. So I don't feel that I'm a heavy smoker here. Nevertheless, I never want to be complacent. Now, I came across a thread where the admin was talking about of a group that I'm in, talking about after COVID-19 totally banning smoking. Um, I would be completely against that. From my own perspective, I never smoke around children. I would never smoke around vulnerable people like a pregnant woman or someone with asthma. Even if a friend comes here before the lockdown, I would ask them if they minded if I smoked, even here in my own house. Um, and I certainly don't break the laws in terms of the smoking in public places. And by the way, I strongly support that law that the Blair government brought in. I think it saved the NHS a lot of money. It probably reduced the number of smoking deaths. It was practical. But the point about that was it was partial. It was in public places. That is where other people are impacted. So this gets into this question of liberty versus responsibility versus our responsibilities to other people. And the whole thing about live and let live so long as you're not impacting others. Well, the thing about smoking in public was it was impacting others because they were breathing in secondhand smoke. But to me, there's a huge difference between that ban on smoking in public and any such notion that there should be a total ban. For one thing, how would you enforce it? You'd have to totally hammer the tobacco companies. Then they would say, well, what about brewers? Well, I mean, if you're going to sort of regulate something that is unhealthy, then you'd need to do it across the board. You would need to like, close all pubs and bars. Many of them are historic institutions. Totally close them. Why? Because we know that this country has a problem with binge drinking. We know that there's a problem with drunks getting on public transport and causing a nuisance. Okay, let's totally ban drinking. Let's ban all fast food because that causes obesity. Let's ban all sweets because it causes tooth decay. Where do you draw the line? This is where I am very cautious about such proposals because it then has an impact on others. I mean, even to use an American analogy, and I'll just briefly touch on this, the gun issue. I am a strong supporter of common sense gun control measures, but I've never said ban all guns. For example, I wouldn't support not letting people have a gun in their own house to protect their family. I would never support that. So these things need to be done with common sense. I certainly am against, by the way, these unhinged, insecure militias who parade down the main street and yell about their Second Amendment rights, intimidating fellow citizens. To me, that is going well beyond the right to bear arms. But with the smoking issue, I don't mind measures to try and encourage smokers to quit. But there is a feeling here that one gets, and I'm not a heavy smoker, but I do feel there is a sort of stigmatizing of smokers, treating them like criminals. If someone smokes, they're not a bad person. Okay, it may be that they find smoking helps them with anxiety. It may be that they're addicted, and that's something that obviously happens. That's why measures need to be understood to try and help people to quit. But there's a range of reasons why people smoke. Like I said in the video of when I was talking about smoking in China, I personally find the smoke itself quite relaxing. Um, but I am under no illusion that it is a bad habit, but it's a bad habit that I knowingly partake in. And I would put it this way, most people have some vice. Okay, so you may really look down on smoking, but I would say, well, do you enjoy the occasional glass of wine, you know? And you could say, oh, well, that's totally harmless. But if you're taking it every day, is it? The science isn't concrete on that. And I must admit, I'm a little bit suspicious of people who are whiter than white. They have absolutely no vices. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they don't indulge in sweet food or anything. I'm not, it's fine if they want to be a healthy person, but I'm suspicious of people who then impose their Puritan lifestyles on others. So there is a real issue here of balance. Of course, it costs the NHS money, and I totally understand that someone from a medical background will, who treat these things, or someone who's lost a loved one to lung cancer, they're going to have a perspective which is probably quite hard line. But I still say you cannot use something like public health as a way to enforce Big Brother. Because there's nothing more sacred in democracy than liberty. Nothing, including even bad habits. So how would you enforce such a ban? What would you would have to do if there was a total ban? Ostensibly, that would mean the police going house to house, checking that people aren't smoking in their own homes when those resources could be used fighting actual crime. So I have a problem with treating smokers like criminals, and there has been a somewhat of a tendency to talk about smokers like they're bad people. Um, I mean, smokers who are stubborn and in denial and say, "Oh, it's fine," they should be challenged. You know, they're being ignorant and they're being ridiculous. But others who know it's a bad habit and they're trying to quit or they're trying to lower their intake or they're minding their own business, I don't think there is a need there for Big Brother mandate. I think the legislation as it stands is enough. It has saved a lot of lives. Now, obviously, the caveat here is COVID-19 going around. If you're a smoker, it's going to exacerbate your condition. So that's why, for example, myself, I have conscientiously significantly reduced my smoking intake. I haven't smoked for weeks now, and maybe I won't. Maybe I will quit. But I want that to be of my own accord. I don't want it to be because Brother State sort of says you do this or you're getting a fine. I think we need to be very careful about that. So, summed up, I'm not in denial. Smoking is a bad habit. I wouldn't encourage anyone to do it. But by the same token, I don't think people should be stigmatized if they do. Um, you know, someone smoking in their own house when they're reading a book or a newspaper or relaxing, I say that is their right. As for it being a burden on the NHS, well, if you want to go down that line, then let's just ban everything that may have health problems. Let's ban all alcohol. Let's ban cars because of the exhaust fumes that damage the environment, because of road accidents. You know, where do you draw the line with something like this? That's my problem with sweeping bans. They need to be thought out very, very carefully. And I do not like puritanical attitude from the Bandit Brigade. They think they're superior to smokers and they look down on smokers. Okay, those smokers who are being selfish, maybe they're smoking around vulnerable people, or but they'd be breaking the law if they were because it's it's banned in public. So we just need to be careful not to that this crisis doesn't kind of give a pathway to Big Brother society where we're all being watched over whatever habits we have. I think that would be very, very damaging for civil liberty, and that is not a trivial issue. You know, what's the point of going through all of this if we only get into a sort of state where we're totally giving up liberties? You know, this lockdown will is going to be a big thing for a lot of people. Like I said, people with mental health conditions, people in domestic abuse situations. So when it ends, the liberty that we've had to temporarily sacrifice, we will cherish getting back again. And I don't think that should be an invitation for Big Brother state. Not at all. I do think there's things that we need to look at, like uh, that can maybe change. Certainly about how we use natural resources. Certainly about, I mean, it may be an opportunity, for example, for armed conflict resolution, even a reduction in crime. There was an optimistic report from Cape Town where gangs had kind of got together. Whether that sort of thing will be long term or not remains to be seen. So certainly we have to learn some lessons. The wet markets in China have to close. There is a lot of things we need to learn. We need to reassess our relationship with China. But I do not see this pandemic as being an invitation to introduce a surveillance state or a big brother state. Certainly, as it stands, I believe there's enough restriction on the smokers. The prices have significantly gone up in recent years. There is a ban in public places. There's health warnings. I don't think it should go further than that.